On October the 7th, we flew to Burlington, Vermont, picked up a rental, and drove 20 miles into the mountains of Vermont to the Smuggler's Notch Lodge. It was snowing. We shared an order of fish and chips and called it a night. The Smuggler's is a condo-type resort. We had lots of room. The downside, no breakfast. We went to Jeffersonville, had breakfast at the 158 Main Street Bakery. We headed north toward Lake Carmi in search of moose. Lots of signs along the way, no moose. Stopped at the Fuller Covered Bridge in Montgomery, built in 1890. We came across a second covered bridge, the Comstock, also built by the Jewell brothers, this one in 1883. Our first full day in the mountains did not disappoint. The changing colors were spectacular. As we headed down the other side of the mountain through the town of Troy, we stopped at the Vermont Woolen Company outlet and Leah got some warm slippers. Stopped for pictures of what was a working grist mill and had dinner at Martell's. Leah had barbecued chicken and I had the barbecued beef. Sunday, we headed to Franconia, New Hampshire. Lots of pictures along the way. And in Stowe, we stopped and had a creme brulee, latte, and maple crunch donut made at the Cafe on Main. Best donut I think I have ever eaten. As we left Stowe, we came upon Ben & Jerry's ice cream factory. It was closed, so we took lots of pictures and then moved on. Small hiccup today on the road. A truck passed us going too fast and too close, forcing us into a ditch. Several people stopped and called for help. After the firemen got us out of the SUV and the police stopped traffic, a fisherman on his way home hooked us up to his truck and pulled us back onto the road. We were very fortunate to be unharmed and no damage to the SUV. We thanked everyone and continued on our journey. We checked into the Franconia Inn, a fire blazing in the sitting room with lots of comfy chairs to relax in. There was a barn next to the inn with horses and Canadian geese in the pasture behind. From all the rain, the sunset was to die for. The orange clouds were a perfect background for the horses and the geese. Just down the road was a small park with a stone iron furnace used for smelting iron ore during the 19th century. emptying into a basin, but due to the lack of rain this summer, there was not a lot of water to fill it. But we were still able to get some great pictures of the leaves in reds, yellows, and oranges. What a peaceful area it was. Monday was Columbus Day. Everyone from the surrounding area came to the Franconia Notch to see the changing of the colors. The Kancamagus Highway goes from Lincoln to Concord. It's 20 miles long, and cars were stopped on every inch of the road, making it pretty much impossible to take a lot of pictures today. So on Tuesday, the crowds were gone, and the area was so impressive, the colors so spectacular, we drove the whole Kancamagus Highway all over again. The Lincoln Heads Trailhead and Gorge was a must-stop to watch the rapids and the rapidly changing sky as the clouds came in. As we crossed over the gorge, we came upon the Albany-covered bridge, one of the most photographed bridges in all of New England. We parked and walked to the edge of Echo Lake. The cloud cover cleared just as we arrived, and the sun broke through, allowing all of the colors of the trees to reflect perfectly in the lake. Back in Franconia, our last stop was at the Franconia Notch Visitor Center, where we learned a lot about the area and its history. I got a picture with a moose, and we were treated to another fabulous, colorful sunset at the end. On our way to Bethel, Maine, our first stop was in Bethlehem, where we came upon the Bethlehem Hebrew congregation. Still had a sukkah in the back. We continued north, stopped for pictures at a covered bridge built in 1852. We had breakfast at the North County Family Restaurant, a small family-owned restaurant with good food and friendly people. At the Androscoggin State Wayside, a hike up to Moose Cave is the main attraction. After meeting and talking to Jill and Bob, we decided pictures were a good thing, the hike not so much. We continued north through Errol to Lake Umbridge. Lots of moose signs, no moose. Found a pullout next to the river. Trees were bright yellow, lots of leaves on the ground. One of the advantages of being on the back roads. We were the only ones taking pictures and enjoying the area. the way into Bethel, a sign directed us to the Sunday River Bridge, built in 1872. The bridge is known locally as the Artist's Bridge because it is the most photographed bridge in Maine. What a find! The bridge was in great shape. The stream below was running full of water, and we were able to get some terrific pictures. We found our way to the Holiday House B&B. The entire inn was decorated with vintage furniture from the early 1900s. Our room was stunning. John and Janet, the owners, went out of their way to make everyone's stay delightful. After dinner, we went back to the bridge to take more pictures. As we headed to Portland, Maine, we came across a small lake that was showing some of the most beautiful fall colors as reflections in the water that we had come across during the trip. So we stopped and took lots of pictures. In Portland, it was time for clam chowder and a trip to the harbor fish market to drool over seafood that we couldn't buy. We then headed to the Portland Head Lighthouse for pictures of the lighthouse and the surrounding coastline. It was a beautiful afternoon, and when we finished at the lighthouse, we went back to the wharf for more pictures. We finished out the day next door to the Porthole restaurant at Boone's Fish House for that long-awaited lobster dinner. It was delicious. We took a detour today and went to Salem, Massachusetts to visit the Witcheries. We stopped for lunch at the Gulu Gulu Cafe and then went shopping, and Leah purchased a witch's hat for Halloween. We then headed north to Conway, took pictures of the Saco covered bridge and river below. We paid $3.44 a gallon for gas everywhere in New England. We had dinner at the Muddy Moose restaurant and got a picture of the only moose we saw on the trip. Friday, we made several stops, including Belmont and the most photographed bridge in Vermont, the Slippery Rock Crossing Bridge. At Quiche State Park, we took pictures of the gorge below through a hole in the chain link fence. We stopped at the Taftsville covered bridge and walked below for pictures of the dam and the river. From there, we found the most photographed farm in Vermont, the Sleepy Hollow Farm. We took several pictures of the farm and the surrounding area. We even had another couple take a picture of the two of us together. We continued on to the Greenbrier Inn in Killington, Vermont, a small charming hotel in the mountains. We found a pond nearby and decided to take pictures at sunrise with the sun at our back. After breakfast at the inn, we stopped back at the pond to watch the fog lift, the sun come out, and we were able to get some beautiful reflections in the water of the colors from the surrounding area. Woodstock was not what we expected, so we moved on to the Sugar Bush Farm outside of Woodstock, saw how maple syrup and cheese are made, tasted, and bought some of each. As we headed back toward the Greenbrier Inn, we stopped at the Glen Falls and the Granville Reserve. The falls and the changing colors of the leaves in the reserve proved to be a good picture-taking opportunity. We stopped at the Cold Hollow Cider Mill and Donut Shop for hot cider and freshly made maple pumpkin donuts that we watched them make while we were standing there. At the inn, we stopped in the gift shop for some last-minute purchases before we left to head on to Burlington. We spent Sunday afternoon at the Church Street Marketplace in Burlington, checking out the store windows and the surrounding area. Our 11-day journey to see the fall colors in New England was a beautiful way to honor Louisa's memory and spend some quality father-daughter time with a most loving and beautiful daughter.